where there is strategic alignment to do some sort of partnership, that's a great way to start working together and see if there's something that's actually going to work.
Okay. Charles?
Yeah. And I think one way, even if you don't have any contact with some of the companies, we learned in our time at Activision, there are corp dev people, right? And you can always start a conversation with corp dev, even if you're not talking to them about a sale, because it's their job to find out what are all the companies in our universe that we could possibly acquire. And so if you just have a casual conversation, a lot of the times they're happy to talk to you just to learn more about your business on the off chance that sometime in the future that you might become in that position for it.
Okay. I think we're already pretty good on time, so I'll really open up for questions. Yeah, you want to get started?
Yeah. So the question I have is, how do you think of the trade-off between being proactive about reaching out to potential acquirers versus the idea that companies
Yes, and companies are dark and soul, but how proactive can you be? What can you do?
It's about time management. So I think investing some amount of time to know other companies in the ecosystem, whether that's going to trade shows, understanding who all the potential buyers are, I think that's all very useful. In terms of hiring a bank and putting together a deal memo and doing all of that, it seems like when you actually have something the market wants, that the market will come to you. And if you don't have that, then you can have the greatest deal memo in the world and the best banker in the world, and it's going to be harder to find a buyer. So I put most of the effort in trying to find product market fit and have a business that's taking off. But it's still worth investing in knowing your ecosystem, knowing your potential buyers, building relationships, just being a good human being and somebody that people want to work with. So I think it's more like professional development, network development. And those are things that can lead to a buyer later.
And I think it doesn't have to be entirely on you. We had a board member that had many years in the industry, and he had a lot of connections to potential buyers. So we kind of were able to push on him to do a lot of the initial outreach. A lot of first-time entrepreneurs like we were at that time, we didn't have any contacts. So you may be lucky enough to have advisors or board members who can help take some of that load off his times.
That's a good point. We're going to talk, let's have some more calls. Yeah.
So now that acquisitions are done, in retrospect, what were some things that you wish you would have known or things that were really helpful to you in the process?
So looking back, things you wish you would have done differently.
I don't know necessarily something I would do differently, but something that surprised me is I didn't really think through when you go through a deal, how much it is herding cats and the divergent interests that people have. So your earliest investors may have a different view on it than somebody that just put in money 6 months ago, and that your team, you may not have a uniform opinion there. And so I was just surprised where, basically through the entire life of the startup, for the first 8 years of our startup, nobody really valued that equity or thought of it as something that was tangible. And then the second it became tangible, everybody's attitudes changed. And it was, there's some nasty moments in there, and I don't know how I would use that information, but just be prepared for a little bit of pain, and it's going to take a lot of time to manage that drama. Because it's a very big moment, right? Are you going to sell the company or are you going to keep going? And you might be lucky, maybe you just have 100% alignment, but I would suspect what I went through was the rule rather than the exception, that there's definitely going to be some internal churn on that. And just be prepared for that. Yeah.
I had some specifics on interesting scenarios like that we didn't anticipate. So there's a lot of emotional things that's going on. Is what I'm saying. So one of the things that happened, for instance, was one employee actually came up and tried to resign. And I asked, why are you resigning? He said, well, we heard you're selling the company and I might lose my job. And I thought, this is irrational. You're about to get paid on your years of work. Why would you resign now? And so people don't always think rationally at times. We thought that they would, but they don't always think rationally. And so trying to manage their emotions through that process with employees. The other one that came up a lot, which was super painful, was that people start thinking about how much money they're getting, and they start complaining about why is that person getting more than me? Yeah, that conversation happened over and over when they finally put a number on it. And they started complaining about this person came in after I did, they're getting more than I am, this isn't fair. And those are the couple things that we didn't anticipate.
Yeah, I mean, we tried really hard as we were hiring to have fairness in the cap table. And so I took it very personally when someone's like, oh, this isn't fair, you know? But I realized I basically had to accept that no matter how hard you try, not everybody's going to value, like, think value the same way. So, but I would say proactively, as you're building your company, like, as you look at your cap table, say, how would I feel if everybody saw this with full transparency? And if there's anything that feels off, try to correct that as much as you can. So, because it may not bring it up and it may not come up, but if it eventually does, it's just going to causes pain.
There was one other thing I was going to add that we didn't expect till we didn't see it till 6 months later was during the acquisition process and then the onboarding and integration. It's really time consuming, and so suddenly 6 months later, all of our projects were behind schedule. We didn't realize this because we had spent the last 6 months working on, the M&A and not enough time working on the product development, and coming out of the other end of the tunnel, it's already a bit late. And so that was something we should have managed better.
We had to freeze hiring for 4 weeks. So imagine an ops-intensive business where we're like having to hire a bunch of people. We weren't able to hire anybody new for about 4 or 5 weeks. And so now we're still playing catch up on that.
It's very disruptive, and in your case, still there was like very high demand from the buyer. Timing was great, so this was kind of accelerated time frame, but still very disruptive.
Yeah, I mean the good news with ours is the whole deal went very, very quickly. I think it was about 6 weeks from term sheet to close, which was very, very fast. And then the team, but even the time getting up to the term sheet and that negotiation was pretty compressed too. So the whole thing went from maybe 2 or 3 months from like, oh, would we want to do this, to the deal getting closed.
What happened to the Argentina tickets?
And now it could be first class, I guess.
Yes.
So, quick question for both of you guys. How did you stay the course over, the period of time that you're building the business? Because hardware is very capital intensive, and pretty much every entrepreneur can be doing something else. So it's a high opportunity cost of spending almost 10 years and not knowing what's going to happen.
Why do hardware?
I don't know. I asked myself that now too. I don't know. I think like we always had just enough success to want to keep going, and like maybe if we had a little less success, we would have given up. But we always had just enough to like want to keep going, and we kind of bought into the bigger vision of the things that we were doing. It was really great to see a tangible impact that we're making on the world. We would launch a new project, and all of a sudden there'd be thousands of people taking rides in the street. Even in the old business model, we'd have those pieces of feedback. Building, like, now that I know how to build a hardware company, would I do it again? I don't know. Like, I guess focus on the problem you're solving. Make sure you love the problem you're solving. And I just couldn't stop. I had to like see it through. I had to get the last piece. I will say, it's certainly why we got bought, because we have really good core competency in hardware engineering and product design and supply chain, and Uber as an acquirer had none of that. And it sounds like a similar case with Guitar Hero and Activision. They didn't have the core competency to make those control units and the actual hardware. So ultimately, it's why we got bought, and more companies are trying to build our hardware capabilities and get good at it and pick up teams. So it being hard and then realizing it was hard is why we got bought. So I don't know. I guess I always had mixed feelings about it, but it worked out. It worked out for us after a lot of perseverance.
Because hardware has, well, first it's tangible, so it has something kind of visceral about it, but there's also the fact that because you have to deal with atoms, like you can't, you have to get your finances in order, and you have to be disciplined, and that's probably like something appealing for a buyer.
Yeah, I think the hardware capabilities, it can be a plus or a minus, right? That's what I'm saying. So the plus was that acquisition didn't know how to do it. I will say that you have to be, I think, world class at something, right? The buyer wants to buy something where you are number 1, 2, maybe 3 in the world at this. So if in our case at that time, we were building hardware software products, which 10 years ago, companies weren't doing it. The VCs were all telling us, you need to either be a hardware company or a software company. You can't be both. And the fact that we tried both gave us some kind of differentiation from the rest of the market. And that interested Activision, who said, we have 10 groups in our company who could replicate your software, but we don't have anybody that could replicate the hardware. And that was ultimately a large chunk of why they bought our company. And as far as running a hardware company, one of the things I always said that we were blessed in that we never got VC funding to run a hardware company, because then it's streamlined all of our decision making to just figuring out if we can make a profit or not on that hardware.
Cash flow and profit. Right?
Yeah.
So terms with factories, terms with distributors.
Yeah. And that actually, as painful as it might sound, it actually made all of our management decisions easy. We couldn't do a lot of things. So we didn't try to do a lot of things, because we had to make a profit every single year. And so I always think that for hardware companies, right, you already have enough complexity in the things that you're working on. And us being able to streamline all of our decision making around hardware, making decisions on products, through this very clear lens was extremely helpful.
So you didn't get addicted to venture capital?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we had a similar story where I went out fundraising in 2014, really wasn't able to get it done aside from SOS. 2015, again, no real luck. And so 2016 was the year, well, I guess when I be able to raise, we got to figure shit out and be able to sell enough product to support the business. So we eked by, we hit 10 million revenue, barely eked out profitability. I wouldn't say it was incredibly difficult, mostly for all the problems you guys are familiar with, which is you have to pay your suppliers usually before you get paid by your clients. And it's remarkable to me that there's no sources of debt available to bridge that gap. There's really no such thing as purchase.
Especially when you're growing fast, because they're always looking at last year's revenue. So
yeah, I mean the banks don't lend you money until you don't need it, basically. So unless somebody has a great source, I was not able ever to find something like a purchase order financing. It would all be accounts receivable, which is actually not the problem that most hardware companies have. The problem is how do you actually get the money to produce the things that you need? So it was really, really challenging. I hope that the ecosystem improves for filling that need. But yeah, you're effectively using whatever equity you can find to bridge that gap and struggle through.
We have a few tax portfolio companies in the room, and I see some nods.
Quick hardware loans.
Yeah.
Is there such a thing now?
No.
That's
my next business.
Still.
Okay, question over there.
For Ryan, when you started your corporate partnership with Uber, was that 100% going in knowing it would be an acquisition, or was that somewhere in between, or you actually thought it would be on its own?
I'd say arguably I didn't want it to lead to acquisition. So it was actually largely driven by VCs wanting to have an answer to a distribution question. And I've said all of last year, I'm look, distribution is not a problem. We have these billboards on wheels, they're highly visible, they convert, we get zero CAC and it just happens. And they're no. I'm it's true. And so actually, even after we launched in January, February, we had amazing customer acquisition just on our own. So very little of the rides were actually driven through the Uber platform. And that actually in some ways even made the acquisition more likely. They're wow, this thing actually attracts customers on its own. So anyway, went into it mostly as a VC asking for what's a distribution strategy, less so that than fishing for an acquisition.
it's kind of interesting when you say that actually hardware has the benefit of existing in the physical world and kind of advertising itself like 100% of the time, particularly if it moves around like a bicycle. Okay, a few more questions. Yes, over there.
A bit of a follow-up to that question, but it does seem like starting with a partnership, obviously, it becomes case like the outcome, and it's a good way to do it. I'm curious, like, it's easy to get bogged down in the details of an Apple partnership and that can be derailed. So that's kind of a objective of yours. Like, are there certain concrete steps that I'm going to take as we're thinking about what to negotiate with the partner?
So what's the partnership that's worth doing, essentially, right?
Worth doing, and like how can you influence it in a way so that it's on, like it's on the table, I guess.
Okay.
An eventual exit or
Yeah, I'd also say be careful what terms make it into there so that you're not limiting your options with other acquirers or your ability to grow your own business. I would say almost be more mindful of that than trying to structure a deal set up for acquisition. I would say until they buy you, do everything, prioritize your business first over their business. And then that will actually lead toward a better exit, a better outcome. If you tailor it too closely to their needs at the expense of your own business, you're undermining your position.
We've seen also at early stage a lot of companies get kind of lured by bigger companies telling them, oh, well, let's do a proof of concept that might lead to a pilot and that lead to this and that. And in many cases, those proof of concepts go nowhere and just derail you for a few months. So you have to make sure it kind of aligns with your business strategy in the first place, that you're actually building things you would be building anyway. So I guess that would be the advice here.
Yeah, I think my experience was that the commercial deals, the partnerships, were easier to do than investment or acquisitions because it's easier to break off a commercial partnership, right? I always joke, like, once somebody's on the cap table, it's like you're married to them. You can't kick them out. They can't ask you to leave, right? You're just stuck with them on the cap table. Whereas a commercial partnership, you can break that up with relatively little pain. And so it's always, in our experience, was easier to do. For instance, a distribution deal. We had a product we were distributing in North America. We could go find a partner that could distribute the product in Europe, a larger video game company. And that was a situation where we were going to get zero revenues from Europe anyway, because we didn't have the resources to do European distribution or Asian distribution. So talking to a larger video game publisher that had the ability to distribute in those areas got us something, got us revenues, it got us distribution, where we would have got nothing, and it got us a potential relationship. So there were several instances like that I thought were easier to do, made sense.
It's easier to get out. Like it's also easier to enter a contract where it's easy to get out. Makes you less hesitant. Yeah.
Are you concerned that the Uber is too big and your company is too small when you try to collaborate? That seems to be intuitive.
So yeah, the difference in scale where you can see about that.
I'll say that for a big company, Uber moves extremely quickly, just evidenced by the fact that we closed that deal in like 6 weeks. What I find now, like during the integration, it's just a bit of a whiplash where before we were under-resourced for 10 years, and so something that would be like 10% of one person's time, and they have like 8 other jobs, that one little 10% sliver, there's a team of like 5 people working on that, or 10 people working on it. So now it's actually playing out. It didn't play out so much in the partnership. There was a little asymmetry where like the team that they put together to do their side of the integration was larger than our entire technical team, and the scope of our activities are just way bigger. So yeah, it is bizarre. I'm trying to leverage the resources.
How many people did you have in your company at the time of acquisition?
About 100, but
how many were moving around bikes? How many were?
Yeah, that was including like the local ops headcount. In terms of like engineering was like 30 or 35, and then G&A was like another 15. So it was about 50 in terms of leadership, management, and engineering, and then about 50 in terms of ops.
How many people does Uber have these days?
18,000 or something. Cool. So yeah, there is an asymmetry there. I've been experiencing more of that in the integration, and yeah, I'm still learning how to do it. It's still fresh.
Where are you today? The largest acquisition they made?
I believe so. Yeah, most of the other deals they did I mean, maybe auto was bigger, but I think auto was backloaded, and I don't know if they're gonna. I don't know how this can work.
Okay.
But yeah, they did a lot of like acqui-hires, but they haven't done a lot of real acquisitions.
We're going to take. Did you have a comment?
I was just going to say that sometimes, so in our situation, we were acquired by a public company, which, as an example, the deal closed early June, Q6, I think, and then the next week, the acquisitions controllers came over to our offices and said, hey, what kind of systems, financial systems you guys running on? We said, QuickBooks, right? I said, okay, well, we got to get you up on Oracle Financial. And we have 2 weeks till the close of the quarter. And he said, we have to get you Sarbanes-Oxley compliant. And he brought out 2 big binders that were Sarbanes-Oxley regulations. And so suddenly we had 3 weeks before the close of the quarter to get up into Oracle Financials and to get all of our agreements sort of Sarbanes-Oxley compliant. So there were a lot of things like that, which were very painful with the integration. And like, it wasn't necessarily that it was a big org, it was just that they were a public organization and that changed the way that we had to do business. That was interesting. There was a lot of learning experiences from becoming part of a public company that I thought was incredibly useful now looking back on it.
Do you think some of the ways we're organized internally cost you money on the deal? Like, I don't know, like the legal, like what I mean is that the contracts not being so great, maybe not being so solid, that the acquirer said, okay, well, our offer was that, but looking at your contracts, actually a mess. Oh, your IP is a mess. Oh, there's a legal risk of, I don't know, like Japanese companies, DDR, like suing you. Did you find did they find these type of issues that affected the deal?
They did. Specifically, we had an IP issue. We were in a patent lawsuit at the time. And that did. So what it ultimately I thought affected was they had to put a large IP holdback. So they would hold back part of the acquisition clause pending the outcome of that. And that was just in case.
So it's money due to the shareholders that's paid only if there's no legal.
Yeah. So it was like $15 million that they weren't going to pay us until that lawsuit was settled.
Quite some amount.
Yeah, and so what I've heard from lawyers is increasingly large companies, especially public companies, are doing IP holdbacks because they're afraid once, like you as a startup might not get sued, but once you're part of a Google or a Apple, you will get sued because they see money. So that's something.
In your case, like, is the bike rental space like a minefield of patents? But you went pretty early on it, so
yeah, we feel we're okay from that perspective. We can't ever stop patent trolls from trolling, but yeah, they didn't reduce our deal based on anything in discovery. I will say one of the learnings that I had in building a company in general, and specifically on the exit, we hired a lawyer very early. So we had our first general counsel full-time lawyer in 2014, and we incorporated. The business was just getting going at that stage, and that was one of the better decisions we made. If you have any amount of we had a lot of contracting work, and that's basically if we were paid outside.
So you're doing a lot of government contracting, so I guess it makes sense.
So just based on the volume of contracting, it makes sense to fill that role. But then we got all these other benefits with having a lawyer.
Cheaper than getting a law firm to do everything for you.
So where the final payoff was that when it came time to go through diligence, there's all these disclosures. And then the entire deal is hundreds and hundreds of pages. And my personal involvement in the actual closing of the deal was actually fairly minimal because I had a lawyer and then she had associate counsel and they could do all that heavy lifting. If I didn't have a lawyer, so much more that the exit would have been just miserable. So, to the extent your business can justify it, bringing on if you're like, maybe I should hire a lawyer, if you're on the fence, just do it. I think it's going to pay a lot of benefits out.
So, one thing I heard from previous deals is that basically you have to have kind of a SWAT team. You have, of course, a CEO involved or a number of co-founders, but typically CEO, CFO, lawyers, accountants, and banker. So, in your case, you guys, both of you didn't use bankers, right? You did?
Yeah. Well, there was an odd situation. We were actually at that time in discussions with a private equity firm to invest. So we were trying to acquire a company and a subsidiary of a larger company. And we hired a bank. It was one of the company we were trying to acquire was actually listed in London on this thing called the AIM exchange, which is like their version of the pink sheets. So that was a bit complicated. So we had a banker engaged to do that. when Activision called, and we just decided to use that for the same. Yeah.
Even though there was fairly different assignment, they had the capability to.
Yeah. So the only thing that changed was they reduced their fees because they didn't have to find a buyer. The buyer knocked on our door, and they just had to help us negotiate.
That's great. Okay, maybe final 1 or 2 quick questions. Yes, one here, and then I'll take
going back to
sorry, this one first. Sorry about that. Yeah.
I spent 2 years of my life kind of battling Uber in India, working at oil cabs. And
oil cabs,
I know there's kind of a trend of just do it, ask for forgiveness later.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you guys see that as a startup? Because I know it's okay to do this as a startup. Once you're a bigger company, then it's not so okay. I know ride sharing is still illegal in most countries that we operate in. So, what do you guys think of that? Even your responsibilities.
So, like basically doing things, even if it's not like fully regulated or fully legal, the path that startups go for on that.
Yeah, I'd say it's actually that attitude was more than just the regulatory piece. The company gave a high degree of autonomy to different cities, to different city GMs, to different parts of the company. So there's a lot of stuff that was built out with little oversight. And so a lot of what Dara is doing is kind of cleaning that up. And there are things now, like one of our competitors now is Bird, the scooter company. They're going to be able to do things, push regulators in a way that we're not able to now or willing to now. So part of the turnaround is how we're partnering with cities and how we're doing the right thing. And so there are tactics you can use as a startup you can't really use as a bigger company. I will say that there is possibility that you'll create stuff to be cleaned up later. You have to do what you have to do to stay alive. That's the number one thing. But the more compromise you make ethically or morally, the harder that's going to be. And I think Uber's on a path now to rehabilitating all that. But it's not an easy task to do that.
Charles, any comment on that?
Yeah, I think the thing that will surprise you is how much you can get away with when you're early stage. And it's not that people didn't know, they actually knew, they just didn't bother suing you or doing anything because you were not worth suing, basically. Right? And until you get to a certain scale, you have assets that they can sue for or they can fine you for. They're just not going to bother. And so it's out there. People, so as you're doing these things, my experience was that they knew we were doing these things. They just didn't bother to take action on them initially because we were so small.
Some question here? Yes.
Yeah, going back to IT, right? When you did the rebrand to Jump, I'm curious, like, did you claim trademark on Jump? And with the acquisitions in mind, is there IP in particular that you think that they acquired you for, or was it more for the team or the technology or the product like we discussed?
Yeah, I think we did file for trademarks on Jump. It's like a surprisingly ownable common word. There wasn't a lot out there that was using that name, certainly in the transportation category. So we did file some stuff there. I think there's 3 things that drove the deal. One, which we talked about already, our ability to make hardware and understand manufacturing was something that they didn't have. 2, we've been in the space for 10 years, and I have really good reputation and relationships with regulators. And so they're obviously trying to turn around the reputation with cities, and I have a very strong one. And 3, the Jump brand is early, but we got a lot of that right. So it was signaling like it was something that could become very valuable. So I think it's the combination of brand, product expertise, and excellence, and city relationships.
Maybe I'll ask just quick question, because we just happen to have 2 hardware companies. How much time do you guys spend in Shenzhen when you were building your products?
Oh, yeah, I was going to Shenzhen probably, I would say 15, 16 years, 3-4 times a year. What I remember most is
at the beginning you were there a lot?
Yeah, I was there a lot. The unfortunate thing for us was we were a Christmas-driven product. The production of that was always ramping up in May, June, July. So I was always there in the hottest time, sitting in factories where they're doing injection molding and melting plastic.
How about the beach?
Yeah. No, I don't get to hang out in the nice parts of China. I get to hang out in the factory towns. I tell people, it's not like going to Shanghai or Beijing. It's kind of like you're going to, like Detroit or like Elkhart, Indiana, in the U.S. or factory.
Yeah. So yeah, I go at least yearly, but my product team is there every 1 to 3 months. And it's great for us because both the electronic supply chain and the bike supply chain are in Shenzhen. There's lots of options there. So it's a great place to do business. I love China. Like, I feel like whenever I go there, I feel like I'm visiting the future. Whenever I come back, it's like,
That's pretty strong statements. And so maybe just this is probably kind of unrelated topic, but it's kind of part of the conversation these days. Why not making things here or somewhere in America? With a hot potato topic, but sort of.
So again, it's not just like the entire manufacturing like core competency and ecosystem of vendors and subcomponent vendors. We've like lost all that. So it's mostly in Asia now. So there may be some products where it can make sense, and there may be things that are highly automated where it pencils out. But like for a complex product that has lots and lots of different subcomponents, like the whole ecosystem is over there. So you just be able to build faster and for lower cost. So it's actually not about labor costs at this stage. It's about the advanced manufacturing investments that they've been making for 30 years that we haven't. And I don't know if anybody here has tried to work with U.S. vendors. Like they're looking for ways to say no. They don't want your business. And you go to China, you go to a bike factory and say you want to build a tank, like literally a tank. They're like, yeah, sure, no problem. We can do that. They want to say yes, even if it's beyond their capabilities. So I just found working with U.S. suppliers is hard, and the quality and the cost is not there.
And you're talking about like U.S. and Shenzhen today, but you were working with them like, over 10 years ago.
Yeah, and we tried to explore a lot of places. We were a fairly low cost, high volume. So at the beginning, we were building 5,000 units a week, which may sound like a lot, but for video games, it wasn't really that much. And that might have been doable in parts of the country. As we scaled, we explored other places like Guadalajara with electronics, some Eastern European locations. What we found was at a certain scale, Shenzhen was the only place that had the supply chain where you could get enough of all the components. And that scale, the ceiling in Shenzhen was so much higher than we ever imagined. We thought 10,000 units, it makes sense to go to China, maybe less than 10. You could get away with doing it other places without seeing much of a cost difference. But in Shenzhen, as your product scales, they just seem to have infinite capacity to supply components and whatever, anything you needed, injection molding. So we got to a peak with Guitar Hero. We're doing 440,000 units a week, and they handle that no problem. Right? The team there subsequently on another product, shocked me, this game called Skylander.